Alright, we're Facebook Live here, 60X Custom Strings. Today our topic is going to be on back tension releases. That's what everybody voted for. I guess we're going to give this a few minutes to let everybody log on, or however Facebook Live works here. So we're going to give it a few minutes. Just going to go over, common misconceptions of a back tension release, how the release actually functions. I might even get into how I shoot the release itself. There's several different ways that people shoot them. See if I can find this thing. If anybody has any questions or anything they want answered during this video, go ahead and post them. I'm going to try to see if I can get them to come up on here. It's not working at the moment, but well, if we get any questions, Don's going to relay them to me.
Jeff Taylor says hey.
Hi, Jeff. It's not wanting to refresh.
Scroll down. Stop refreshing and scroll down. Brian Cunningham says hi.
Hi, Brian. Alright, we're going to do this with Dawn relaying me messages. Are we ready yet?
Yeah, Jamie wants to know what's the difference between a click and no click.
Okay. So, on these releases, you're going to have to get closer to see this. There's a little half moon, and this is just one style. This is probably the most standard. There's a lot of releases that resemble this. They have a half moon here. A lot of them have a click cut into one side of them, 6, 8, 10, 12 thousandths. So when the release goes before the release fires, it makes a clicking sound, and then the size of the click determines how much further it travels after that click before the release fires. So that question there is kind of before me explaining this. So let's go back to the beginning and I'll show you how this actually works. So common misconception is a back tension release only fires if you use back tension. That is not true. So this release works as a hinge, and you're going to have to get closer again to see this. But I have this set pretty heavy, so you'll see this piece stays still on the loop, and the body of the release actually turns, and it just makes this pivot action. There's a click, and you keep turning it, and it fires. So as this release hinges, that motion there is actually what fires or triggers the release. Now, if you're just pulling on the release, you can pull all day. If you don't turn it, it won't fire. So yeah, everybody calls it a back tension release. But it's actually a hinge motion that makes it fire, not back tension. You could just get up there and twist the release, it'll still fire without using any back tension at all. Back tension is just a style of shooting where you're applying pressure with the middle of your back to pull against it and keep steady pressure. You can adjust these so they fire extremely quickly, or you can adjust these so you have to physically turn them, or just for how comfortable for you drawing the bow back. Some people have a really deep grip, some people have a really light grip on the release. There's no right or wrong. There's very good shooters out there that have a very different idea how these releases fire. Personally, I like to set mine pretty light. I like to draw my hand back in an uncomfortable position, kind of rolled forward. And then that way, whenever I get the full draw, I don't actually have to work the release. As soon as I get the full draw, I just start relaxing my hand, it clicks. And then I just keep relaxing my hand, and as I do, it makes the release fire. I don't actually ever have to think about pulling on it, where a lot of guys out there will actually draw it back, rotate the release till it clicks, and then set their shot up from there. It works for a lot of people. It's all personal preference. That's just not my style. I don't want to work any harder than I have to. I don't want to think about firing the release. It's just one of those things that you have to try and you know, test out for yourself and see what's going to work for you the best. Do we have any questions on this yet?
Nope.
Okay. So if you shoot with the click, like I said, it will, when you draw back and you start your shot, the click will let you know that you're in the same spot every time. Previously, I never used one, but I did discover that it's easier, especially if you're shooting higher poundage bows, where you want to get a little bit more hand on the release for the draw. It's really nice to be able to just draw it back. You know you're not there. As soon as you get back, you start relaxing a little bit, or you rotate the release to the click. Then you can start at the same spot every time without having to worry about a premature fire or anything like that. This is something that you're going to want to practice before you just go out and start shooting. Start up close, just get the mechanics of the release down. This is a Zenith. These are all Zenith releases. This one here actually has a practice cam on it, which is a nice feature. And you can buy these on our website. They're like $15, where the release doesn't actually fire. So as you draw this back, this one here actually has a practice cam on it, which is a nice feature. You can buy these on. Why don't we just put that down? Okay, so this release right here, if you get close enough, you can tell that it has a full circle, where normally it is a half moon. So when the release dumps off the back of this is what makes it fire. So this one here will not fire, but it simulates a shot with the groove cut in it. So these are nice, so you don't have to worry about punching yourself in the mouth or anything like that when the release fires and you're not ready for it, or during the draw cycle if you get too much of your hand on it. It's just a nice training tool. The other thing you want to pay attention to is whenever you have your fingers in here, some people want to draw just with their pointer finger and their thumb, which is, that's where you want all your attention to be. But they'll have the tendency to push this finger forward, towards the bow itself. And as you do that, that will actually make the release fire. That's what I see a lot of people doing. They're scared of it, so when they first draw it back, they want to stick these fingers out. And when they do that, they'll actually move the head of the release and trigger the firing mechanism on it. So for a beginner, the practice cam is a really good training tool. You don't have to be scared of it.
George asks, how do you know how many fingers, 2, 3, or 4?
So that's all personal preference, George. Here's a 2, 3, and a 4 finger release. They all work exactly the same. It's just what's more comfortable for you and what you can be more consistent with. It's not a standard mold where one thing fits everybody. It's all very much personalized and personal preference. Just like a lot of things in archery, there's not two people that do everything exactly the same. Everybody's shot sequence is a little bit different. It's just you have to try it and see what you can be most consistent with. I always tell people archery is a lot like golf. If you ever watch golfing, Jim Furyk has the most goofy swing in the world, but he's one of the best golfers in the world. Archery is a lot the same way. There's not two people that do it the same. There's a lot of people that shoot at an extremely high level, and a lot of them use a hinge or back tension style release. Now, whenever you're pulling on these releases, you don't actually want to twist your hand. You want to have a slow, steady pull on it. So once you draw back and you're starting your shot, you don't want to actually physically turn your hand. Like I said, there's different ways to do this. Like I said, these aren't my releases, but when you draw back, once you get to that click, you don't want to actually twist your hand to make it fire. You want to just kind of let the release stretch in your hand and slide, applying pressure with your back. You're not actually putting any tension on it with your hand or your wrist. You're just I just use almost like a stretching motion where I'm pulling with my back and I'm pulling my hand away from the release and letting it slide in my fingers until it fires. And there's several different ways to do it. That's just what happens to work for me. If there's no more questions for now, then we'll see you next week.